Good morning, everybody. Sorry we're just a couple of minutes late. Despite the night owl over here, having a big party time last night at a Paul McCartney concert, it is actually me that was a couple minutes late, so I apologize. Blame the giant thunderstorm that rolled through Atlanta last night at about 3 o'clock in the morning and kept us up till about, well, it was time to get up the next morning. That was a rough one. That was about as loud as I heard. But Nick, how was Paul McCartney last night?
Ah, man, he was great. It was a lot of fun to see him. My wife adores him, so it was mainly for her. I got her the tickets for her birthday, so it was a lot of fun. He was really just fun with the crowd the whole time. A lot of jokes, a lot of storytelling as well. So, he's. I always think of gosh, what's the movie? Dewey Cox, Walk Hard. He's like he meets the Beatles in that, and he's like, how could you hate John? He's so impish and whimsical. It's like he really is. Like I would go to bat for that. But it was a great time. A lot of good hits. Still got it. I mean, as you age, a lot of those singers, their voices they can't hit the same constantly as they were anymore. But Sam singing
Yeah, but
great,
the
good
nostalgia
tunes.
factor goes way up.
Oh
So
yeah, yep. All the Beatles songs. Some of his new stuff was pretty good too, actually. So it was a great concert. He went for a while. I was shocked. Maybe an older crowd there, and like, nope, we're not home until 1 a.m. last night. 1:30, and so I'm on 4 hours of sleep. But
it's
we're
got to be the
here.
older crowds. They're the only ones that can afford concert tickets these days.
That's a good point. Yeah, that one. Send in the super chats, folks. No, I'm just sorry to get you mid coffee. I'm glad you didn't spit. But yeah, no, it was a great concert. A lot of fun, and yeah, no, the who knows? It might be his last one, his last tour. So the Get Back tour. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, welcome in, everyone. This is Forging the Falcons, among other things. We are now live on YouTube and a couple of Facebook channels, and there's several people in. So hit that like and share. If you know an Atlanta Falcons fan or someone that just enjoys talking draft and football or has an opinion on it, invite them in. Let's grow this thing. Lots of stuff I want to get into today, Nick. I want to go over the entire. We did a first reaction of the first round, but I want to talk Falcons draft after the fact, and also get into some others. Winners and losers, biggest surprises, that type of thing. I also want to talk some of the big news that's come through Flowery Branch here in the last few days, including Grady Jarrett's extension. They picked up the option on Chris Lindstrom, but did not on Caleb McGarry, and they cut running back Mike Davis. So lots going on. First off, what were your gut reaction to day 2 and 3 of the Falcons draft and the draft as a whole?
Well, day two, I thought this similarly. You know what? Maybe getting Drake Jackson at 8, or excuse me, London, Drake London, not Drake Jackson, the other USC guy at 8 wasn't the worst in the world because the wide receivers went off the board quickly, and Christian Watson was traded up for, I think, before the Falcons could pick. You could have had, Alec Pierce, Tyquan Thornton off the board soon after that, or Sky Moore. But given where you got Drake London, would it have been good to trade back a few picks? Yes, but I think all the tier 1 wide receivers were gone by pick 12. So coming away with Drake Jackson, or God bless, Drake London was a good haul. Day 2, though, for the Falcons, man, they did about as good as anybody going. And I know a lot of people are praising the Ravens. The Ravens did do very well, but the Ravens didn't pick up premium positions where the Falcons, pick 38, Arnold Buchetti. You know how much I loved Arnold Buchetti.
Mm-hmm.
Tenacious player, good length, man, just has a variety of moves, closes space well. He harassed my Hawkeyes when they played. So really good player there. Troy Anderson at 58. I mean, if you're going to bet on a day 2 linebacker, bet on a dude with freak athleticism. And Troy Anderson has that. 74 on Desmond Ridder, taking a dice roll on a quarterback where, let's say Desmond Ridder doesn't end up a starting caliber quarterback. I don't think this started the clock on Arthur Smith. I don't think there's pressure from the fans to get Desmond Ridder out there. He's the 74th pick. What's the hit rate on a day 2 quarterback? That's what he is. So I think, though, taking him there, considering his intelligence, his work ethic, I mean, you either got a heck of a backup or just, a dice roll at a quarterback, which I don't mind there. D'Angelo Malone then rounding that out, pick 82, double dipping on edge, a team that desperately needs to walk away with 2 edges, so doubling your chances there since you didn't take one at round 1. I think they absolutely killed it. Day 2 was amazing.
Yeah, I didn't like you. You saw my reaction, my instant reaction to the Falcons at wide receiver at 8, and I've been against that pick since Kyle Pitts last year.
Yeah.
But that was before the draft last year. We didn't know that Julio Jones wanted out.
Yeah.
So, my thoughts are, what good is Kyle Pitts going to do when you've already got Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones, and you still don't have an offensive line, defensive line, a second cornerback, et cetera, all the holes on the team. Well, you didn't have Julio Jones, and you were able to draft a 20-year-old freak of a tight end who's going to be an all-pro, a Pro Bowl player, all-pro guy for a decade. Okay, I can live with that. Then I think the roster actually got worse. The team got worse in the offseason after a 7-10 season when you're losing Foye Oluokun, you're losing Matt Ryan, you're losing Russell Gage, your leading receiver. You don't have Calvin Ridley. Now it's like, okay, I wanted kind of some foundational players at that spot. And, there wasn't necessarily one available, except, my pick at that spot was probably Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
And he's not a premium position player. It's just, I leaned a little bit on the nostalgia there. And frankly, I think he would be more effective because an individual on defense can affect the game more than an individual on offense. A wide receiver needs a lot of help. He needs the offensive line to block, and he needs a quarterback to throw. Well, Marcus Mariota is a question mark at quarterback, and your offensive line still isn't very good. So how effective is Drake London going to be this year and next year, frankly? But EJ came in here, I think. He says, Scott, I know you didn't want a wide receiver at pick 8, but if you had to take a receiver, who was your wide receiver 1? I am extremely biased towards the bigger wide receivers. So if I hadn't basically just said I don't want a wide receiver and looked into the wide receivers, my guy at the top that would have started at the top would have been Drake London. I don't know that he would have stayed there because he didn't run. I don't want to give a $25 million guaranteed contract to a guy that I don't know how he can run. Now, they said he did, or at least they wouldn't say if he did or didn't, but we were happy with his speed, watch the tape, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, you better be sure when you passed over 5 other guys that went afterwards. A Jameson Williams might have been my guy if I watched a full tape on him, knowing I could redshirt him for the most part. I don't have to rush him out there because 2022 is going to be it's not going to be a great year for the Falcons. We'll see. It's always time to talk. There's 3 months to talk yourself into that. But I might have gone Jameson Williams, but I probably would have ended up going with the big guy. I'm totally biased towards the 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Drake London, I think he creates a really unique mismatch weapon for the Falcons, adding to Kyle Pitts. And I think it's kind of, adding to his strength and adding to a specific niche. Not many teams have, especially with the off coverage stuff coming in today's NFL right now. Smaller cornerbacks are in because you're not seeing as much press. Somebody who can win at the catch point, like a Drake London, really presents a unique matchup problem. I think he's going to play a lot of the A.J. Brown role in this offense, which is a slot. I know you don't want him as the slot as much, but middle of the field targets with his wingspan, with his catch radius, and then the yak ability after that. So, and the run blocking out of the slot, I think, is very underrated, a very underrated aspect. It's something that one of the key tenets of the Sean McVay offenses is being able to run out of 11 personnel. And guess what? If you're going to do that, your slot receiver needs to be an ass kicker as a blocker. Yeah. And Drake Jackson,
Calvin.
Yeah,
Calvin Ridley. What? Calvin Ridley is he'll never play. I said it in November of last year, the week before he was eligible to come off the list the first time. He will never play another down for the Atlanta Falcons. Never.
Nope.
And what you just described, forget everything else. He's not a fit in that way. He doesn't want to do the dirty. Julio Jones. One of the things that made Julio Jones so special, Julio Jones was a beast blocking. Calvin Johnson, he played in a modified wing T offense at Sandy Creek High School down in Tyrone, Georgia. He only caught like 700 yards his senior year. I think they went to the state championship, but they didn't win it because that was how they ran the offense, and then they could throw it up to Calvin when they needed to. But Calvin Johnson would block his ass off. And so it's good to hear that from Drake London too. And Shane, appreciate the comment. He says, I love the Falcons draft. Finally, nice to have some optimism.
Yeah, it was a good draft. Big Al in here. How do you guys think Ritter really is? And how much do you think he'll play this season? I guess there's a chance he could play towards the end of the season. He's in line if Mariota gets hurt. So, that could be week 1. Who knows how that plays out. But I like the Ritter pick, especially where they got him. He's a good athlete. He is aggressive within structure, which I think is underrated. I mean, coming from watching the Drew Lock era in Denver, aggressive to be aggressive sometimes isn't good, but aggressive within the confines of the offense, I think is a good way that you want your
Yeah,
quarterback to
you
be. And
want
I
him to
think
be a
Ritter
little greedy, just
brings
not
that.
reckless. Greedy
Yes.
is good, reckless is bad.
Yep. So I'd like Ritter a lot in that way. And also where you got him, if he doesn't end up being if he just ends up being a backup quarterback, that's a
Mhm.
fine investment. In hindsight, you'd rather not spend a third round pick on a backup quarterback, but you don't know that yet. So you are adding to the room, adding somebody who, by all accounts, is an adult. I mean, people rave about his maturity, his competitiveness, his intelligence, his just not want to be better, but need. So I'm shocked that you got him where you did. Honestly,
Mhm.
I'm still crazy these quarterbacks
Honestly,
as
I was
well.
okay getting him at 43.
Yep.
We in some of the mock drafts, Al, that we had done, I took him at I was running behind. Got my Braves hat back here. Let me get that out of the way. I was okay with taking him at 43. I really
Yeah.
liked him at the Senior Bowl. I told Nick I really liked him at the Senior Bowl. As far as, again, I didn't like anybody in the first round of the Senior Bowl. Kenny
Yeah.
Pickett, Malik Willis, none of them. I didn't want any of them in the first round. And you don't typically want a quarterback you're not going to get your starting quarterback in the third round. So you're taking a swing here, and again, it's a low risk, high reward type of offer. He's very similar to Ritter. I think he's probably a little bit smoother of a passer. I mean, to Mariota,
Yeah.
probably a little bit smoother of a passer. If Ritter had played in that Oregon offense at the same time, I think you would have heard similar things about Ritter that you did about Mariota. How much will he play? You probably don't want him to play much at all. I think the plan coming in would be, okay, we want Mariota to bridge until we know what we've got with Ritter, or we jump back into the quarterback market again in 2023.
Yep. So, I mean, great pick there. Scott, I want to hear your opinions on day 2 as well after we hit some of these up.
Sure.
But
And
Jeremy
I can
first.
start with Jeremy here too,
Yeah.
because Ritter was a day 2 and Malik Willis was available there. So I know Ritter is more the Mariota type, but do you think passing on Willis was ultimately the right move? Well, we won't know ultimately for a while. Would I have done that? Probably not. I probably would have gone Malik Willis. I can absolutely see why Ritter was over Willis, though, just because, again, when you're watching the passing at the Senior Bowl with these guys, when you drop them into the pro style offense, it was underwhelming.
Yeah.
There's some nice highlights in there, but the lowlights, I don't put lowlights up. The lowlights were concerning. There were some severe accuracy issues, and not just for Willis, but I thought Ritter looked really smooth on the run, and that was one of the things that just got me. When he's rolling out passing, I'm like, yeah, I like what I see there. And he's got the arm strength. He was a winner in college. He's got the production to go with the tools, comes out and runs a 4.5 flat at the combine. He's a hell of an athlete. So I'm okay with it. I am.
Yep.
I would have been okay with either of these guys. If I was in the room, I probably would have said, get the Roswell, Georgia kid. Get the Atlanta kid with the tools, the upside, and all that stuff. But Ritter's got a lot of that as well.
Yep. No, absolutely. And I see Orange coming in here. So before we get into your day 2 thoughts, should pull up Ethan at the bottom saying, so the Falcons saved $7 million against the cap this year with this extension of Grady Jarrett. Next year's guaranteed salary plus bonus is $20.625 million, which would be 20 and 5/8. I think it's 625. 2024 is 20.375. That's 3/8. And with potential out of dead cap of 8.25 million. 2025 is 20.375 cap hit with an out of 4.125 million.
So yeah, Grady Jarrett's extension in 2022, he was just over $20 million, and now his cap hit is 13. So they saved about 7. I look at this as a 2-year deal, a restructure. I mean, I know it's an extension, but when you look at the dead cap number and you look at his age, where he'll be 31 in 2024, and the dead cap number in 2024, which is in 2 seasons already, drops to 8.25, that's when it becomes feasible to get out of. I could save $12 million if I move on from Grady Jarrett. It was kind of like this year. So 2024 will be very similar to where the Falcons were with him this year. And they could have moved on from Grady Jarrett this year. They didn't. They brought him back. And I look at this as a 2-year deal with 2 1-year club options
Yep.
that they can decide to extend or not if he's still worth $20 million a year. If
And
he is, then they've got him for 4 years. If he's not, then they can move on. Grady gets paid. He gets a nice signing bonus. He gets $40 million out of this, and they've got him for 2 years. So I like the move, Nick.
yep.
Grady Jarrett, I've said before, the guy's Falcons royalty. He's a Falcons legacy. You've got to have some players in there that are on board with what you're trying to do, but also still connect with the fans.
Yep.
This is, I don't know. I mean, all fan bases are fickle, but this is one that they're teetering on the edge of I don't give a damn just about every year.
Yeah, apathy.
And that's not entirely Atlanta fans' fault. That's some bad franchises, some bad decisions, some bad ownership. Not saying blank. I'm talking about Atlanta sports in general. But the Atlanta sports fan will not put up with mismanagement for long. And you can just look in the seats and figure that out. And if you're going to be bad, at least bring him back Cordero Patterson and that megawatt smile of his, and bring him back Grady Jarrett. We'll buy you some time and some goodwill with the fans, even if you're really going to stink this year.
Yeah, and very possible this team.
And thank you, Ethan, as always.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ethan. And very possible this Falcons team stinks out loud in 2022, but that was always going to be the case. The draft wasn't going to change that. The draft for this Falcons team is more about 2023, 2024, and beyond. So we got Michael coming in here saying, what do the Falcons do with starting linebacker Dion Jones?
Yeah, you suffer him for a year. Again, this one you could have moved on with Grady Jarrett because moving on from him would have saved $12 million on the cap. Dion Jones, it would cost you $4 million to move on from him. He's got a cap hit of 20 and a dead cap hit of 24 for a guy that you really don't want to have playing with you anyway. Maybe I might be being harsh, but he didn't play very well last year. Certainly didn't play like a $20 million defender, let alone linebacker that you could have gotten the same production for and play for $2 million. I don't know what they're going to do, Michael. But let's see, we're at 55 million in dead cap. If you move on from him, that puts you at 80 million in dead cap, which is over 1/3. So let's just call 38% of your salary cap money goes to players that you cannot reallocate in another way that goes to Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and Dion Jones. For us college football fans, I say that's equivalent of playing with, let's say, 0.6 times 85 is about, it's equivalent of like playing with about 50 scholarship players, 48 scholarship players. So half a team. So I just think one more year, and then next year, Dion Jones, let me see, Dion Jones' dead cap number next year, if you can suffer it for 1 year, his dead cap number drops to 5. He's gone. You suffer him for 1 more season. His dead cap number next year drops to 5. He's toast. At best, and this is something else that you may have been brought up, Nick, if you do it after June 1st, you can take that 24 and knock it to 12, then you save $8 million this year, but then you're still eating $12 million next year. Man, I'd just soon suffer through this year and get all of that money back next year.
Yeah, you could trade him post June 1st, which would change that money a bit, where you'd have $9 million dead cap this season with that $5 million still coming next season, saving $10 million. So that would be actually okay against your cap there.
But dead cap's 24. I thought it just cut in half.
Looking at it for the 6/1 release, it says 24, but I'm looking at post June 1st trade with the dead cap for 2022 being $9 million. The post June 1st release is $18 million, but the trade changes things. Goes to $9 million, where you save $10 million then. So
but you got to find somebody willing to pay him too. And as Kevin says, nobody wants him. Yeah. Who's a sponsor of the show today, Scott? We'll get to that about the 30-minute mark. We'll give a read. It's been a good week for old Ryan Kennedy Holmes, thanks to this show, of course.
Good.
So,
good to hear.
Going back to day 2, though, I think we hit hit some of these. questions that I wanted to get into that were part of the show topic as well. Arnold Buchetti, I was lukewarm on him at best at the Senior Bowl. But that's a small sample size. So, my best friend texts me, says, "What do you think of this guy?" I'm like, I wasn't that high on him. I said, but two guys I trust, and Nick Kendall being one of those guys, loved him. So they absolutely loved him. It fits a need without a doubt. For God's sakes, the Falcons need at least 3 edge players. You see him coming down. He's got his hand down here, so he could be in a 4-3 too. Coming down in run support here. I like showing that first play because of the way you can see him bend. But he's a 4-down guy here. Okay, a little awareness here. Hey, ball, see ball, get ball. But I was a little lukewarm on this one. That's Trevor Penning that he's pushing back, I believe. And then again, nice bend, good athleticism, but needed a position without a doubt. If I'm looking at that spot, and I see Arnold Buchetti at 38, because they traded up to get him. Mm-hmm. Arnold Buchetti, Boye Mafe, David Ojabo. You need help right away. I mean, I don't think they're willing to completely redshirt this, to throw away this entire season. Arnold Buchetti should pencil in as a starter.
Yeah.
I wanted Travis Jones in this, but there's something going on with Travis Jones when he falls into almost 80, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
But, edge. If you went edge, I'm going to be happy. Now you tell me why I should be happy about Arnold Buchetti.
Oh, man, this dude plays with a rocket in his rear end. So much energy rushing the passer from Penn State. I think he was 18 tackles for loss this last year, 5.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. I love the body type. Under 6'3", but with 34-inch arm length, and uses a variety of speed moves. I don't know how much more mass he can add onto his frame, but he already plays pretty good with his hands, and I think he can continue improving there. Talking about the energy that he plays with, that's true getting out of his stance. It's also true in run support. I saw that guy make plenty of plays on the opposite hash mark of where he was lining up to when the ball was snapped, and chasing down the ball carrier. I know that he was considered a strength and conditioning leader as well at Temple before transferring to Penn State, and quickly became a leader at Penn State as well, which I think is really that's an entrenched program. There's a lot of big time recruits at Penn State, so able to come in as a senior transfer and then stand out as a leader pretty quickly, I think is really good. So he's still not started that many games in his career. 2020 and then 2021 were his main 2 years. He's also a little bit older, already 23 years old. That's true for most of the prospects in this class, honestly. This is the oldest draft class ever, thanks to the extra year of eligibility that a lot of players got. But this is a good player. I'm really excited to see how you can attack with him. I don't think he's ever going to be a plus run defender, but with his length, he can hold his own in that regard, and definitely wins and uses that length at the point of attack as a pass rusher. I think he'll be your best pass rusher pretty easily year one from that edge spot.
Yeah, I'm not worried so much about the age on him. If it comes to the point, it's like, gosh, he's been so good. It would have been nice to have him, 2 years earlier. If we hit that when he's 30, I'm going to consider that a home run draft pick. Yeah. You get 6 years, 7 years out of that guy of plus play before he starts to decline. That's a home run for me in the second round, for goodness sake. Moving on, just real quick for Tommy. Good morning, Tommy. He was talking about Julio Jones, and Drake London isn't freakish. He's big. He's got good body control, but he's not Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, AJ Green by any stretch of the imagination. Those guys were, Calvin Johnson shows up and forgot his shoes or something and put on somebody else's shoes and rips off a 4.3. At 230 pounds. Those guys were different without a doubt. London, that doesn't mean he can't be extremely effective, but he's a 4.5 guy at best. And y'all have heard me say before that's plenty fast with that kind of size. If you've got size, you can be slower. If he's Calvin Austin and running 4.5s, he's looking at the USFL right now. But at 6'5", 4.5, that's more than enough for sure to be effective. But no, he's not Julio Jones. He's not Calvin Johnson. He's not AJ Green. And I'm not expecting to be, but those are 3 of the best of the last 15 years. Moving down, so good morning, Chris. Good morning, Chris Walker on Facebook. I thought Ritter was great value at 74. So do
Yeah.
I. So do I. Love his attitude and intangibles. Even if he doesn't play, it was worth the risk. It was a low risk, high reward pick at 74. I think that the running back from BYU is going to be a difference maker, Tyler Algier. That was one of your guys, Nick. I know you really liked him. If the offensive line plays better, he's strong. Mike Davis is not a bad running back. He was hit and making guys miss in the backfield. He was a stout running back who needed to get a head of steam going so you could see what he could do. And that didn't happen on this team. So might be a different type. And Damian Williams might be a better fit for a bad offensive line, for a better way to put it. Let's move on to Troy Anderson. You know I was a big fan of Troy Anderson, so I'll sing his praises after you talk a little bit about him. The second pick of the second round, if I'm not mistaken, number 58 overall. Again, talking about a value pick. I love it. I mean, he should be a 10-year starter for the Atlanta Falcons at 58.
Yeah, no, good get. There was some talk about his shoulder being potentially a concern there, but obviously not to the extent. He didn't fall to the third, fourth round. Flew around there at the Senior Bowl. He's had a career where he went to Montana State, and they kind of jerked him around as far as his positional need. But I guess that shout out to him for being
jerk him around, though. He was awesome.
He was awesome, but they kept saying, okay, now we're going to put you at linebacker.
And he was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of think about jerking around. It's like, where it's like, oh, I'm going to put you here. And then, you know, you're not as good as you could be. But it's like, didn't he rush for like 1,400 yards or something? Then had 180 tackles. I mean, he was like, Troy, this is what we need you to do. All right, coach.
Yeah, but I mean, the questions that he have now are there because he played quarterback and running back, didn't play as much linebacker. But yeah, no, he was good there for Montana State as Big Sky freshman of the year. Then also first team all Big Sky, led the team in passing and rushing his sophomore year in 2018. Played linebacker and running back in 2019 as well. Very good athleticism, obviously, really stands out. Running a 4.42 40 at 240 pounds is alien-like. I guess there's no other way to put it. And really fun in pursuit. I mean, you can see that speed on tape when you watch him. The processing from the linebacker position is still, very much a work in progress. It's linebacker is a head up from head up position, or neck up, I guess. So that's something you're going to want to see on there. And while he has athleticism, I think the fluidity in space is still a question mark, just because he wasn't tasked with it so much at Montana State, the mirror matching kind of skills. But good player.
I want to show this play here just right off the bat. Now that I'm watching a little bit more closely, that's Zion Johnson at center, Andrew Stuber at right guard, might be Dylan Parham at left guard. I'm not 100% positive on that. It looks like Bernard Raymond. That's who was 76 that Buchetti was going against earlier. That was Bernard Raymond, third round pick of the Colts. Watch this play as the left guard tries to get to the second level, and Troy is able to just basically bounce laterally out of his way and fill. This is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Boom, one step, gone. And he's around him. I mean, he's not there, and it's like, now you see me, now you don't. And he's just around him. It's like, okay, he just shut that play down. I mean, he's got when you start talking about, and this is a thing, how is this processing be? How's all that stuff going to be? When you start talking to me about a guy who was a conference player of the year on offense and defense, I don't have any worries or concerns about what his level of processing and understanding of the game is going to be like, because that's just pure freaking football player.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about a guy that can do that, it's like, oh, but it was at Montana State, Scott. You could have put Ernie Sims. You may not know who Ernie Sims is. Ernie Sims is one of the best two-way players I ever saw. He could have played running back and linebacker at Montana State, and that's fine. So let's check the numbers. It doesn't matter. Troy Anderson is still 6'3.5", 243 pounds, with a 36-inch vertical and a 4.42 40 at Alabama. That doesn't change. Now, is he going to get 147 tackles at Alabama? The stats might change.
Yeah.
But all I ask is that you dominate the level of competition you're playing, and then let's check and make sure you can measure up to the next level. He doesn't only measure up to the next level, Nick. His you're a big Rask fan. His relative athletic score is going to be on the high plus side of things. So I love this pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And can we get to the comment here from Jason L? It's the third one, saying if he's smart enough to be a quarterback, he's smart enough to do linebacker. You can be extremely book smart, which this is the point I was making, which Troy Anderson is a 4.0 student, high school valedictorian of his high school. Granted, I think his graduating class was like 40 people, but he was also a finalist for the NCAA Academic All-American Award as well. So very smart. That said, playing quarterback and the processing, and especially a dual threat, rushing the ball as much as passing it for Montana State, it's not really the biggest demand for him to be processing. So in theory, yes, you see a guy who grinds. I think it speaks to his work ethic and intelligence. But again, you don't really see it until you see it, right? We don't have the reps as much. So it's just a question.
I just think it's a guy that's a savant almost. He's going to, like Goodwill Hunting. I could just play. I've just always been able to play. A guy that can do that, he can just play. Yep. He gets this game. This game comes easy to him from a mental standpoint. Can he learn those things? Yeah. Will he have to adjust because of the speed of the guys that are coming at him are different? The strength of the running backs? Yeah, he'll have to make an adjustment, but he's got the physical tools to go with it. That's the important part.
Yeah, and just back on Troy Anderson here, the other thing on tape that I don't know how much is going to translate is he could just run around those Division II blockers that he was playing against.
And some Division I, evidently.
And some Division I, yeah. But I felt like he got caught up a good bit when he was trying to pursue in space from what I saw. So just understanding how to slide off blockers to cut through and, jackknife through the mess.
This is him next to Chad Muma. Chad Muma's in the middle. And Chad Muma's a good linebacker as well.
Yeah.
But again, I was at the Senior Bowl with these guys, and when you're lining them up next to each other the entire week, it wasn't close.
Look at him.
Troy Anderson was considerably better than Chad Muma that week.
And he went before him. So
yeah, he did. Yep. Now we'll see what that matters. I was a big fan of Richie Grant too, and Richie Grant struggled mightily this year, and so it is a smaller sample size. But again, I love the pick. I think we've already talked a little bit about Desmond Ridder, and Nick froze up a little bit in mid sleep. Either that or it was one hell of a blink.
I'm here.
And now you're looking like this, so you're getting some good freeze frames in there. If you have any more questions in the chat about Desmond Ridder, we'd be happy to get to them. But I think we hit on those a little bit. D'Angelo Malone, edge, the second pick of the third round, Western Kentucky. Nick, this was a guy that I liked early. I didn't think he'd go quite this high, but I liked him. I also liked him because I could get him in the fifth in the simulators. But I think this is still a good pick because there was a reason why I liked him. And if I liked him, most time, this isn't rocket science. Hey, big, fast, athletic, mobile, agile, and productive. I want that guy.
Yeah, I know. I'm 33 and an eighth arm length, a little bit slender body type, but can really bend the corner there. Good speed rusher with finesse to his ability as well. Needs to get stronger. How much stronger can he actually get with his body type? We'll see, but that's talking about a third round pick here and doubling down on the position. So he's going to be able to get after the passer. Had, what was it? Let me see here. 17 and a half tackles for loss and 9 sacks in 2021. Had 11 and a half sacks and 21 tackles for loss in 2019. Been just a disruptive force his entire career there for the Hilltoppers, I think, for Western Kentucky. Uses his length quite well, and that's something, while needs to get stronger at the point of attack to set the edge better, the length can give him a little bit of an out. It's not the Nick Benito with the 31-inch arms where it's like, yes, he's lighter, but he also doesn't have the length to play across gaps. D'Angelo Malone should be able to get his hands on guys to make his edge presence run defense-wise a little bit better. So needs to get stronger, can get a little bit more calculated with his hands usage as well. But this is a good pick here. Curious to see if he's going to be more hand in the dirt or stand up, what they're going to do with him on twists and stunts. And also, I'm curious if he is, I know he's a third round pick and the edges for the Falcons were rough. Ideally for Malone year one, he's more of a designated pass rusher while he works on his game, gets a little bit stronger. But Good player, really productive, and somebody I think in most classes goes middle to late round 2, but because of just the depth of edges this season, pretty good player, pretty good pick there.
Yeah, and I like the motor in there. I put that in there. This one in here, I'm like, this was probably a win for Braxton Jones, the one-on-ones. But I left that one in there because I like the way he kept after it, even though he slipped. You can see how and oh god, that first step of his.
Yeah,
That's one
good.
of the things I really like. The word is becoming a twitch. I used to call it bounce, but we use kind of quick twitch to discuss this. But just that first step and a duck under. Braxton Jones did a good job here, and I like the motor on him. And again, NFL Combine results for D'Angelo Malone. I think you read off some of these numbers, but he came in at 6'3", 243. Didn't run at the Combine. 23 reps on the bench, and but I don't have many doubts in his first step. And that's him ushering Malik Willis out of bounds. Malik Willis can fly, So
yeah.
I do. I like this pick here in the third round as well. Moving down, they did not have a pick in the fourth round. They may have given that one up to move up. I don't quite remember for sure. I thought they had a fourth round pick going into the draft. They may have used that one to move up to get Buchetti. But in the fifth round, they took running back Tyler Algier. We knew they were going to be able to save about $3 million, $2 million by cutting Mike Davis. Mike Davis was on borrowed time. So Algier comes in here as a fifth round bargain. He's going to be cost controlled and cheap. And tell me what you like about his game.
Tyler Algier,
yes.
He going to be very good this year. And if I need to hop out and restart the internet real quick for me,
it started clearing up now while I was showing that video for a little bit. It was struggling just a little bit.
Okay, I got no bar issues, so I'm not sure what's going on the screen. But Tyler Algier. I think he is a little bit Mike Davis with more tread on the tires. I said that correctly, right? He still has more tread on the tires. And I think even a little bit better at playing through contact. Now, Mike Davis would do a lot to go not very far, bounce off guys, and he's moved 2 yards. Tyler Algier covers ground a little bit better. I think he was second in college football this last year in yards after contact, which we know from just looking back in data, that yards after contact is one of the more translatable stats going from college to the NFL. So he's going to be able to do that. Very strong player, good body build, has the ability to, I think, be a volume carrier as well. And somebody where if you are going to play a little bit light in the box, he can get after it and make you pay there. So I like him a good bit. I think this is a great value pick here. Also, I think he's a decent pass protector as well. I don't think he's going to offer you almost anything as a pass catcher, but the fact that he can stand back there and take a free linebacker is huge plus for me. It's not even a plus. It's a must-have if I'm going to take you in today's NFL.
Especially if you're going to cut Mike Davis, because Mike Davis did a good job of burying his head into guys. It was an underrated aspect of his game, considering how many free shots defensive linemen had coming up the middle at Matt Ryan. 225 pounds. I'd rather have the 4'6" guy that can break a tackle than the 4'5" guy who can't at running back. I've said this a zillion times. If you take this statement out of context, I'm going to sound like a moron, but speed is overrated in this thing because 4'6" is fast. It is. It's fast. 4'5" is faster, but not faster enough to make up for the balance, the vision, the power, the instincts, et cetera, et cetera. That's when you say, okay, he's fast. What else can he do?
Yeah. And speed, I think, at the running back spot is, you've said this before, but I'm agreeing with you, especially in the too high world. The big explosive plays, the 80-yard runs, the home run hits, you're not seeing as much cover 3. You're not seeing as many 7 guys in the box. So while there's more space at that second level, the third level has more bodies to corral to the ball carrier. So you're not seeing as many home run hits from handing off the ball. The need for the running back game, and people kind of roll their eyes at this as running doesn't set up the play action pass. By volume, that's true, but you need a running back in a running game that is a threat enough that other teams have to think about, okay, should I be playing a lighter box? Should I be playing cover 1 or cover 3? Because if I don't, they're going to kill me. It's one of the things that makes Ryan Tannehill so good. Honestly, he hasn't seen a light box in his life, so he has space down the field because if they're playing a light box against Derrick Henry, good luck. So really, I think Algier, obviously not going to be Derrick Henry, but I think he can be a starting back. And this is somebody that I'm going to monitor him closely in the preseason here just to see what his touch load looks like and everything, because I think he could be a very good dark horse fantasy pick.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't I don't know nearly as much about Damian Williams, the guy they brought in.
Yeah.
Cordell Patterson's not going to be an every down back, obviously. You don't want him getting more than 5 to 10 carries. So there's
Yeah.
20 carries that need to go around. Where are they going? So this could be,
Yeah.
Kadri Ellison's okay. Allison he's okay, but I don't know that he's the guy. Now, to round it out, 2 picks in the 6th round, you got a couple of dogs, national champion Georgia Bulldogs. Justin Schaefer, guard, absolutely needed help on the interior line. I think Jaylen Mayfield, I saw a graphic, an infographic on Twitter from PFF or somebody that had like the most quarterbacks hits given up in the last 5 years. And
Yeah.
Mayfield was like 50% ahead of number 2. I mean, it wasn't close. So again, I don't necessarily blame Mayfield. I'm not going to get on Mayfield. I don't blame a guy for being bad. It's not your fault that you're not good enough right now. That's the organization's fault that you were put in that situation. As long as you are being a good teammate and showing good effort, I will have your back. I might say you're not good enough, but I'm not going to get all over Jaylen Mayfield. It's not his fault that he's not good enough yet. Came in at 20 years old. He's 21. He only had 16 starts at Michigan at right tackle. He was brought in to give competition to Caleb McGarry, but he's a guard mentality, guard build, and that's where he'll end up. But it was too early for him.
Yep.
Hopefully he makes a leap, but how much can Justin Schaefer legitimately push him to be a starter on that line?
Man, he's probably a backup. Let's just be honest with it. He's not the best athlete. There's a reason he fell to, what is it, the 6th round here?
6th round.
Yeah, he is a, this will make you happy though. I believe he is a local kid growing up just outside of Atlanta. Makes sense being a Georgia Bulldog, but that's not always the case with, big time program like that. Does okay in a phone booth. If he can get his hands on guys, I think he can control them at the point of attack. Georgia used such tight splits with their offensive line that it's kind of hard to, even for playing guard, what is his ability to stick on guys and move with them laterally and hold those kind of blocks?
So is that how they got away with playing Sawyer at tackle, who looks for all the world like a guard to me?
Yep. They have very tight splits compared to other teams. And they pretty much use their tight ends like left tackles. That's why, God, Brock Bowers hype. Let's start getting it. It's 2024 draft season already. I'm obsessed with Brock Bowers for Georgia. What a freak. But yeah, Schaefer, good pick here. You're talking about a 6th round pick, local kid. I think there is some meat on the bone as far as his profile, given Georgia's offense was, ground and pound, very safe, Stetson Bennett, and then let the defense cook, because why wouldn't it be? I just don't see the explosiveness or the movement skills from him to be a good starter, but I think he has the body type. He's physical and competes in his blocks as well, from what I remember watching from him. So should be a good player. I don't think that, if you're asking him to move in space, you're going to have a good time, whether that be pulls or that be the wide zone kind of blocking scheme. But again, head up, get his hands on a guy, move forward, that can work.
I just think if you're giving up that many hits from the guard position, your mental process is off a little bit. They're right there in front of you for the most part, so I know there's multiple schemes and stunts and all that type of stuff, but when you're that big, if you're getting beat that often on the interior line, Mayfield doesn't have a strength problem. We showed at the beginning of the year of Dahlman, and it was Dahlman and somebody else just get folded in half by the Philadelphia Eagles defensive tackle. I'm like, that's a physical problem. And that's not it. I just think, maybe a year that Mayfield should get better just through osmosis. He should get better. Another year playing just guard, he should get better.
Yeah.
But if Schaefer comes in and picks up the offense right away, he can. There's starting snaps to be had for him without a doubt.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you see him this year, it's probably not ideal, but fine pick here.
But it can't get any worse than last year. It can't.
Yeah. They might suit us up, and then it can get worse. That's one of the lessons. It can always get worse.
It's like you're watching you're watching a soccer game and they actually pull guys off the field, when you get a red card and you go down to 10 players. And sometimes the team plays better because when you're expecting a guy to do a job and he doesn't, then that's almost worse than knowing he absolutely will not do a job because he's not there. The rest of us have to do other things. Yeah. So I have a hard time believing it's like if they played with 4, they probably would have been better off because they'd known they would have had to make adjustments instead of just this guy in here that's getting, ragdolled. So I know you're not playing with 10. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it's almost just like the edge position. It's almost statistically impossible to be as bad as Steven Means was at edge. It's almost impossible. I mean, it's mind-blowingly impossible how bad he was. And that's kind of how the left guard position is in my mind.
Yeah, it was bad last year. There's no doubt about that. That game, I still remember watching week 1 versus the Eagles. And, shout out to the Eagles. Javon Hargrave, one of the best interior pass rushers in football. But holy crap, welcome to the NFL, kid. That was rough. Last pick for the Falcons here, unless there's anything
I want to real quick, Nick, since I just said that, you know how bad he was? No, Scott, how bad was he? Steven Means, game logs. So he had 2 quarterback hits in week 5 against the Jets. He didn't have another one the rest of the season. Tackles for loss. He had 1 in week 3 against the Giants, 1 against Washington in week 4. He didn't have another one the rest of the season. This is a guy who started 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He started 10 games.
Yeah.
10 games without a quarterback hit. I'm not even talking sacks, man. Didn't have a sack all year. 2 quarterback hits. They both came in the same game in week 4. So when I say statistically impossible, that's what I mean. A blown assignment is a tackle for loss. 1 blown assignment in 700 snaps is a tackle for loss, is a quarterback hit. It's almost impossible to be worse at edge. It's almost impossible to be worse at left guard.
Yep.
They just have to improve. Probability says they have to get better.
Well, that's you'd hope. That's for sure. And
John Fitzpatrick, tight end. Needed another tight end. You lost 2 tight ends to retirement and free agency. Hayden Hurst, a pass catcher who I think just didn't have the season that a lot of us were expecting to, and cost himself a bunch of money in free agency. His option was not picked up and moved in free agency. And then Lee Smith, a pro's pro, who is I thought it was funny when I went and watched them practice. He actually went with the offensive linemen when they broke out into individuals. Is retired. So you bring in John Fitzpatrick, and Georgia tight end, not Wisconsin. And in the 6th round, he's got a chance to play.
Yeah. No, that's a good call. And he's definitely your Lee Smith replacement, 6'7". Let me see what his weight is here. 262 pounds. That's crazy. He does not look 262 pounds. It's one of those things. It's like, talking about Matt Waletzko. It's like, how much does he weigh? How's that possible? Frame. I think there's ability to get another.
He's too light at 315. Huh?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, could definitely put some more mass on his body. And again, this Georgia defense was playing, babysitting the football just so the defense could, get it to them or score points themselves, which is fine. Not really used as a receiver because Brock Bowers hype here. God, what an absolute unit. 18 years old, looking like that last year. It's a different kind of guy. I don't think he's not Kyle Pitts. He's more of an inline guy, but keep an eye on Brock Bowers if you woke up yesterday and haven't watched a single college football game. But I think he can be a very good Lee Smith replacement. I think he's solid at the catch point from the reps that I saw, as limited as they were, because they're not targeting plays to him. But I think he can develop into a fine red zone, maybe 20 targets a year kind of guy, which is fine if he develops into that Y attached to the line of scrimmage tight end.
Yeah, a fullback type of numbers where you give it the ball just to keep people honest, but he's there to do a different job. And to feed him just to keep him happy. Reward the guy that's doing the dirty work. He's the dirty work tight end for sure. Because Kyle Pitts, who can block, but he wasn't drafted 4 overall to block.
No.
That's not why you brought him in. He was brought in to go 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns. That's why he was drafted. So overall, despite the fact that I was dismayed at the wide receiver pick at 8, and as I've said before, it's not the guys that you take. It's not the guys you miss. Though I will be watching Kyle Hamilton closely, because if I get a 12th tight end in the league or wide receiver in the league, and he goes for 1,200 yards a year for the next 10 years of his career, but the Ravens get Ed Reed, the Ravens won that deal. And that's kind of how I'm thinking. It's like, okay, there's position of value. Yeah, but it's a possible Ed Reed. It's a guy that we're talking about who is an all-pro. Those guys are game changers. I don't care about position. Kyle Hamilton looks like a game changer to me. Yeah. Drake London looks like a good wide receiver. So we will see. But despite the fact that they went in a direction I was hoping they wouldn't go, the only thing they could have done that had any realistic chance of happening that I would have liked less than taking a wide receiver is if they reached for a quarterback at 8. That would have been the one, like, no, God, no. But it looked like everybody else pretty much thought about this quarterback class the way we thought they did. Troy Anderson, love it. Arnold Buchetti, you love it. D'Angelo Ritter, I'm looking at it. D'Angelo Malone, I like the pick a lot. Desmond Ritter, low risk, high reward, 4-5 guy, smooth athlete, good arm in the 3rd round. Doesn't stop you from getting another guy next year. I like it. I do like the pick. So overall, I was quite pleased with how the Falcons draft went out. And the good news for Falcons fans, you're going to see these guys. That's what's fun. You're going to see these guys because the roster is so awful. You're going to see these guys. I got good news for you. You suck.
Yeah.
But for the building process, it'll be fun to watch these young guys come in and play early. And hopefully they will, because last year I was disappointed on the whole with the draft class. Richie Grant, disappointment. Jaylen Mayfield, disappointing. Drew Dahlman, disappointing. Kyle Pitts, hit. Good pick.
Yeah.
But overall, it was a disappointing return on the draft class last year. I think we'll see more of these guys pop this year.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see. You'd assume that there's a little bit of maturation with the offensive line this year, that McGarry and especially the left guard position, Jaylen Mayfield, would improve a bit. And getting another weapon in there like Drake London should help that offense a bit. I think you are going to downgrade on the quarterback position in general. I guess that's duh. We won't know until we know. But given that Matt Ryan went for 3rd and you paid Marcus Mariota relative pennies compared to what the quarterbacks typically get, that makes sense. So long-term questions for the Falcons. But I like what they did here and really attacked a lot of premium positions. So overall, I think it's an A class. And I've come around on the Drake London pick. The more I think about it with the fit, the way offenses are going in today's NFL,
the cost of wide receivers,
and the run on wide receivers. You could have traded down and be like, we need to come away with a wide receiver, traded down to where the Washington Commanders did and be like, I guess we're reaching on Jahan Dotson. That would have been bad. That would, even though you would have traded down and gotten more capital, that would have been not a reach. You got one of those tier 1 wide receivers. I think the one that makes the most sense for your offense as well, maybe other than Jameson Williams, but the catch radius guys, how much Arthur Smith uses the middle of the field, how much he wants to run the football, all of it points to Drake London. So I think it's a fine pick there, and everybody kind of raves about Drake London's competitiveness, intelligence, character, whatnot as well. So I think it's a good pick. I know
he's young. If I'm not mistaken, he's 20 or 21 years old, isn't he? I mean, yes. Kyle Pitts is still 21. This is, and like I said on Friday, I'm like, I figured it out. Let's just go all in. Let's just sew up the wide receiver room now. Let's get another one. Let's get another couple wide receivers in here. Christian Watson went off the board before the Falcons picked again, and I would have said, take his ass too.
Yep.
Pick him and go, 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" as your primary pass catchers, and then drop, a water bug like Calvin Austin in the slot. Absolutely. I'm good with that. And speaking of what I'm good with, Kenneth coming in with a super. Thank you, Kenneth. Says, were you happy they went Ritter over Willis? Indifferent for the most part. If they had gone either one, I would have said, okay, I like the pick. I think that's good value. I liked Ritter. I probably would have gone Willis, but it was small hairs to me. Fine margins for me. I can see why. Willis was erratic as hell throwing the ball. Ritter was a little more consistent, has much more experience at the position, and his 4.5 and his athleticism don't get talked about enough. Let me, why don't you hit this real quick, and I want to look up his rushing numbers at Cincinnati because they're impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think Willis has a much lower floor than Ritter, and we know about Ritter's character and intelligence. I mean, people rave about him as much, so I don't mind it. If you were looking for a long-term starter more than
Nick froze up a little bit in mid sleepiness. Looks there. I did look him up real quick and remember that sacks count against. I might have to. You froze up on me a little bit there. Well, it looked like
I'm here again. I don't know what's going
but
on.
Remember, in the college football game, sacks count against rushing. So he still in 4 years ran for 2,200 yards and 28 touchdowns. Ritter's an athlete. He's a hell of an athlete. And meanwhile, his passing numbers were really good as well. Obviously, 10,000 yards passing. I always like to look at that touchdown to interception ratio is one of my favorites, and his was 87-28. So a high 3-1 on his touchdown, and he can play. So I'm okay with the pick. I might have gone Willis, but again, happy. It was, like I said, indifferent was probably the better word. I'm okay with either one of those guys in that spot because I don't expect either one of them to play this year.
Yeah, no, it's I think that's a good pick, culture pick, and again, it's a dice roll where the quarterback should again. I guess props to the NFL for kind of sitting on their hands with this quarterback class and kind of learning something, I guess, about the recent wave of quarterbacks. You didn't have people tripping over themselves to take them round 2. And you're not sitting here and we have to play the guy. We used a premium investment on him. No, you don't. You don't have to pay him. Oh, we can't take a quarterback next year. We have to see what Ritter has. No, you don't. You don't have to see anything that he has if you like a quarterback in next year's class enough to take him top 5, probably where the Falcons are going to be picking. So I think it sets you up really well long term.
Again, Nick, a good time to how do you flip a guy that doesn't even play preseason?
Yep.
You play Desmond Ritter for, if you got maybe 3 or 4, I would probably still only 3 preseason games. You get him a game and a half of football at least in each one, probably more than that, to be honest with you, because I don't know how much Marcus Mariota will play. Matt Ryan didn't take a snap in the preseason last year. Mariota will probably take a little bit more than that, but I wouldn't expect him to get more than 2 quarters of preseason action. Desmond Ritter could go out there and look fantastic. Get all the Falcons fans, why isn't he playing when Mariota is struggling behind, real football, behind this offensive line and everything, and when he struggles? But then you might be able to spin him for a second or package him to move up. Let's say you finish with a 6th worst record next year and you need to get up into the top 2. You can flip him that way. Now, real quick before we get out of here, I did want to talk about the two offensive linemen drafted in the first round 3 years ago. Chris Lindstrom, guard, his option was picked up. Caleb McGarry, right tackle, his option was not picked up. So he's a free agent after this year, while after 2023. While Chris Lindstrom will play on his 2022 contract and will then get a massive increase of about $4 million to about $11 million in 2023 before he would become a free agent. Now, this is a softball. I'm going to line up and I'm going to toss this to you like a slow pitch. Were these the right decisions?
I think so. I would say yes. This is a team that is, where they are, and they got some players. I guess the one that makes me the most questionable is the Grady Jarrett extension, just given where you are as a team. But you keep talking about, the fan stuff, giving him a bone. And if this guy accepted a contract like that, that means he's okay being here as well. So he's not going to be an issue. He's buying in, or at least consenting to where the Falcons are in the rebuild process over these next few years. So overall, it's pretty good. I think the Falcons had a pretty good offseason overall.
No, and I might have broken up there for a second. The question on this, the softball question, was the option. You're picking up the option for Chris Lindstrom, offensive guard, while declining the option on Caleb McGarry, right tackle. Was that the right decision to make?
I guess out of the options available, yes. The right decision would have been maybe flipping Caleb McGarry or something like that. Although going back on some of the offensive tackles in the league, maybe we sold him a little short as being the worst because, Storm Norton did play last year for the Chargers and oh my God. But bottom 5. And you have him for 1 more year. It does create questions long-term for the right tackle position, but the way the 5th year option is now, 100% guaranteed, it's makes it tough for these teams to pick up these options. So Caleb McGarry, right decision. Chris Lindstrom, also the volume. I think the contract amount for Lindstrom wasn't as high because of the position. Am I correct on that, or is it higher because of
No,
his slot?
it's based on where you're drafted.
Unless you're a quarterback. So yep, that's
Maybe, but it
either
was
way,
the same.
it's
It was
fine.
basically the same number that Calvin Ridley was going to play under this year. So it's basically he goes from $4.5 to $11 million next year,
Yep.
which is good offensive
Yep.
guard money. Which again, to your point, as always, has been you don't want to use one of those picks on a player like that and end up having to pay slot spot on a guard because normally you wouldn't pick that up. That's why you see these linebackers that were drafted high. Their options aren't getting picked up. It's like, why would I give him 10 slot money? Well, why'd you draft him at 10 then, dummy?
Yep.
Now you're going to lose him. But yeah, Chris Lindstrom is playing like a Pro Bowl guard. And if he is, and if he's getting top 10 guard money, which is right around 10 million, then okay, I can live with that. Caleb McGarry needs to be gone. It doesn't do you any good this year. He's not that expensive. He's $3 million for a backup right tackle, assuming, and that's what he is. He'll probably start 17 games, but he is a backup right tackle, and his dead cap number is pretty close to his cap number. It's like 2.3. I just pulled it up, so let me look. His dead cap number for Caleb McGarry is 2.2. His cap hit is 3.2. So you only save $1 million. It's worth having him there as a right tackle for $3.3 million. Yeah. But he's not he better not be starting in 2023.
Yeah. And talking about the fifth year option on Lindstrom, I'd be pretty shocked if it got to that for him. This is more of I would say, because you have year 4 still, and then year 5 for him, because you have to choose to exercise that option prior to year 4 of that rookie contract. I think the picking up the option is more of a tool where you can negotiate, where you have that year of control no matter what, but you probably approach him before 2023 season where he gets that big money for that contract extension, and you're not competing. You're only competing against yourself in that regard, because if he doesn't want to sign it, guess what? You can go back to that 5th year option. It's not the free agent pool.
So Nick, he gets picked up at 13.2 for 2023 is his option, and it's fully guaranteed. That would make him the second highest paid guard in the NFL if it were this year.
Yeah.
If it were this year. So I think you're right. You want an extension, we're going to tear this thing up. We don't want to pay you 13. We will pay you 13, but you're not going to make 13 ever again.
Yeah. You're going to make 13, but it's going to be
like,
guaranteed.
We'll pay you 13. That's what we owe you, but consider part of that severance.
Yeah.
And then you can go get 6 somewhere else, or we can sign a 4-year, $32 million, and you'll make 8. And 8 puts you in the range of top 10. Number 11's making 7.4 a cap hit. Number 8, 7.7. So top 10 guard is 8 to 10.
Yep.
Is 8 to 9, really. So a top 10 guard is 8.
Yep. And you're going to get that guaranteed money because the way the contracts work is that signing bonus is prorated over the salary cap, over the length of the contract. But all that money has to be put in, what's the word here? Escrow, and then paid to that player. So it's like, listen, you're going to get a lower cap hit this season, but that's 13 million. Hey, let's kick it up to 18, and we're going to spread it out over 4 years of a contract. Yeah, here you go. God bless. Go buy another home or something. Whatever you want to do, Chris. Right. It's on us on that one. So that's probably what it is. It's just a negotiating tool and another option of control. And for hopefully the Falcons do not do what the Washington, I guess back then the Washington football team, and before that, the name that we won't say, did with Brandon Scherf.
They were the Washington Redskins. That was the name of their team.
Scott, we're going to get... no,
I'm not erasing history, dude. That was the name of their team.
I know. I'm just having fun with it. But probably won't see them do what they do with Brandon Scherf and then get absolutely no return when he gets signed later. So probably approach him after this season. Maybe even this season, but I'd play with him on his contract this season and have it behind him, especially because you're dead cap stuff. And then have it behind you where you have a lot of cap space next season. You can pay him, and all will be happy with that right guard spot for the next 6 years.
So last one before we get out of here, I want to hit Chris. And Chris says, I was fairly pleased with our draft this year. I was disappointed because there were bigger names at premium positions of need that the Falcons could use, especially at 8. Wish we had traded down and got more, but we could have gotten Hamilton, Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis, Travis Jones, and several others. Stay true made me feel a lot better. I think the draft was better than last year's, and I hope that's a trend for the future. Better picks the following year. Yeah, again, and Terry Fontenot said, and I'll say it again, Scott, what do you think of Terry Fontenot? I'd like to know what he was offered at 4 last year. Before I can judge him, I don't have all the information. So he addressed the fact that teams called about trading up, but nobody was really serious about it. So, okay, then stay at 8 and take the guy. Again, wide receiver is a premium position. When that contract comes up, if he ends up being a top 15 guy and you've got him at $4 million a year, that's a bargain. Yeah. My concern, though, is your garbage offensive line and a quarterback that's there for a year, maybe 2, that is a stopgap. Are you going to be able to get the best out of Drake London for 2 years, or sour him on the fact of staying there, and then he's going to want to move, we got people calling him a bust. It's a team game, fellas, and wide receiver is a dependent position. He's good, but I don't feel like they were in a position to take advantage of the strengths of a wide receiver yet, because the interior lines were so bad on both sides of the ball. I want to build inside out, not outside in.
Yeah, absolutely. And make you fumble coming in here. You did want to get out of here, but he's talking about CJ Stroud here, saying Ohio quarterbacks never translate in the NFL. We would have to take one in the first round to get Stroud, which they won't. Old enough to remember Tedford quarterbacks. The Tedford defense quarterbacks always bust. Why would you ever take one of those guys? Joey Harrington, Trent Dilfer, they sucked. Anybody who plays in the Tedford offense is terrible.
Trent Dilfer was pretty bad.
But then here comes Aaron Rodgers, who played in that offense. Before that, Pac-12 quarterback can't do anything. Air Raid quarterbacks can't do anything. Patrick Mahomes, all it takes is one guy to change that. So you got to scout the individual player, not the. They say it's a scouting cliche for a reason. Scout the jersey, name on the back, not the helmet, the logo. Just because, and especially with quarterbacks, every single quarterback's so individualized.
There's not really I liked Mac Jones last year because of what he did under pressure. He's got the best team out there. He did. But when I'd see him make plays under pressure, I was impressed.
Yep.
And those are one of the it factors you look for in a quarterback. Yep. What can he do with somebody in his face? Might not happen all that often, but it did happen. So I did like him. I just, speaking of strange picks, there was some strangeness going on with the New England Patriots, but that's something we can talk about another day. I'm going to let you get out of here. I'm going to appreciate everybody else for being here. Any final thoughts before we head into Hump Day? It almost feels like the weekend.
Man, I'm tired. A good concert last night. Paul McCartney. Shout out to Paul McCartney here in Seattle. And great draft by the Falcons. I think they did pretty well, taking a calculated dice roll on a quarterback there you're not married to him one iota. And if he hits, great. If he's cheap and cost controlled over his contract, that's great. But if he's just a backup, that's fine for that. You doubled up on the edge spot. You took one of the best athletes in the class, and you got a unique wide receiver who I think fits where the game is going in today's NFL. And also fits the offense. And then one of my favorite running backs in the class too. So Falcons, obviously this draft is probably not going to pay off until, 2023, 2024, the delayed effect. That's how draft classes work, right? Typically year 3 and 4 of that contract is where you really get that value on those rookie picks. But this was a good draft. And I think the Falcons are heading in the right direction. So definitely want that.
The double dipping on edge, the pass rush will get better. Can't get worse.
No,
it really can't. It was, again, I've said statistically almost impossible how bad it was. The pass rush will get better. My pick for the biggest impact on the 2022 season out of this draft class is Troy Anderson, the linebacker. He'll be able to do more things on his own. An individual can affect a game a lot easier on defense than they can on offense, where it takes 11. One guy breaks down on offense, the play breaks down for the most part. But one guy makes a play on defense, that play's over. So Troy Anderson has plus size, tools, everything to go with it. I love the guy. I think he's got a chance to be a really good Atlanta Falcon for the next 10 years. And I think it'll start and he'll show out pretty early next season. But on that note, I want to say thanks to everybody. Thanks to our super chat contributors, DWI guys, Ethan over in London. There you go. We're going to have to get you a Falcons London jersey. My best friend's daughter name is London. I haven't sent him that picture of Drake London holding that jersey up. I'm like, dude, I hadn't even thought of this. We got to get London this jersey, for God's sakes. I have to bring you a Falcons London jersey, I think. And Kenneth coming in with the super chat. So thanks to all of y'all for coming in. Nick and I will be back on Mile High Huddle YouTube channel tomorrow morning, same time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, bright and early. Until that note, I like to repeat what Nick always says, which is choose kindness, choose compassion. Thanks for being here, y'all.